Hey there folks, it's me TheTacticalBrit, your home of tactical shooters, and today the news a lot of people have been waiting on is Insurgency Sandstorm's official console release date. We finally have one, and August 25th will be the official release of Insurgency on Xbox One and PS4, and I'm going to be talking about that release date today, what it means for Insurgency, why it's an intelligent release window, and why I think they're probably going to do very well. Now, in between all of this, I'm going to be talking about the impact this has had on the PC community and whether or not we're really going to see any benefits from all of this in terms of just the wider game as a whole. So yes, August 25th is the date. It's going to be at PAX East. It's going to be a few other potential conventions before then. And I think it's a very intelligent release date that's been chosen here by NWI for a number of reasons. Number one, this is an August release date. The summer drought will be in full swing, especially during a console release year. There's not going to be many games coming out, and this is a great opportunity to capitalize on just more or less zero releases during that window. It's a great opportunity for these guys to really cash in on having that empty market and, more importantly, get some publicity out there. People will look forward to new releases when things are so boring and things are so drab. But it's also very intelligent on the flip side of things, because Insurgency as a game runs okay, it runs relatively well, but there are some issues on PC, and it's going to take some serious labour to try and get this to run well on PS4 and Xbox One at 60 FPS, because realistically playing it anything below that is just a bad idea. And I think they've probably had to do a lot of coding magic in terms of just making this work, and a lot of changes to graphical settings and lots of optimization passes. But this is very intelligent, because if it does end up running meh, or doesn't run particularly well, August, fine. September, October, November, oh wait, suddenly you've got two new consoles that are significantly more powerful and will be able to run Insurgency very well. So it seems to be a very intelligent release window, and one that was chosen, I think, intently on making sure that they could captivate a large number of audiences, but also just one that doesn't necessarily mean they fall on their own sword if performance isn't up to standard. Of course, I do believe these guys will do everything in their way to try and make sure that performance is optimal, but just because how old some of these consoles are, I mean, a base PlayStation 4 these days is like a very, very, very weak starter gaming PC nowadays, so it's really hard to see how they're going to get things to run well, and I'll be impressed with the final product if it does run relatively smoothly, because that shows some serious commitment to what they have. The Sandstorm experience is probably on its own on console. Rainbow Six Siege is more or less the only game that comes remotely close to offering players of this category a hardcore shooter, and Battlefield is probably the next closest thing, which is wild if you think about it. And I really do feel as though there's this huge gap in the market for these guys to occupy, and if they do really well, it could mean a lot for not only Insurgency, but also for the players on console for what might be the future releases of the next generation. Next generation consoles, based on the statistics we've seen, based on the spec sheets we've seen, we expect them to be around a mid-range gaming PC now. We're talking in and around the region of a 2060, if not just a little bit weaker than that. And just generic, decent processing power. These machines, by no stretch of the imagination, are going to be the most crazy thing in the world. It doesn't matter what, marketing gimmicks they throw out. 12 teraflops means absolutely nothing. A 12 teraflop card can perform worse than ones with significantly less teraflops, so to speak. So all of these, market speak terms, people talking about solid state drives, we've got instant SSD stuff. It's like, a lot of this technology, unless it's a Gen 4 SSD, is going to be very much behind the fold in terms of what's already been released. You can definitely make more powerful machines now than the upcoming consoles. But regardless, it does bring about a new standard where games like Insurgency Sandstorm are possible, including a number of other hardcore shooters within that same bracket, which will now be a feasible release on console without having to worry about sacrificing too much in the way of optimization. A big part of this, I think, as well, and something that I think will pave the way in the future, is whether or not the next Battlefield game is going to be cross-platform in terms of supporting the last generation, because based on its release date of 2021, I actually think they're going to give the PS4 and Xbox One a miss, and only allow the game to run on the Xbox One X and Xbox Series X, because I truly believe if you're going to deliver next-gen experiences, you have to move away from this hardware, you have to move away from this older generation of hardware, which a lot of people don't realize because they've spent £300-400, $300-400, $500 on a new machine. It isn't that powerful. This hardware isn't as powerful as its market. The Xbox One X, of course, is a relatively powerful console in terms of what's available, but it's still not a very powerful gaming machine on the whole in terms of what some developers are looking to push for some of their games. So, if Insurgency does well and manages to showcase that you can get a game like this to run okay on consoles and pretty good on the new consoles, then it could pave the way for a lot more in the future. And it could pave the way for much more money for NWI, and honestly I don't have a problem with that, because NWI are a pretty good developer. They're very communicative. I know they've had some issues with Insurgency Sandstorm, but on the whole, they do listen to their community, and I feel as though, regardless of whatever blips they've had with this game so far, these are the kinds of things that can be rectified if they're given more development and more developers to do things that they want to do. A lot of people don't realize it, but unless you have people in the back end doing stuff for you, it's really difficult to achieve stuff publicly. You can't say, oh, we want so-and-so feature changed or fixed, and there's like one dude who's also working on like 6 different things at the same time who can only do that. So I really do feel as though Insurgency Sandstorm's developer pool right now is probably pretty small, and I imagine should it get some more investment off the console, it will do incredibly well. But what this does mean as well, especially for the entire game, is now, hopefully they have a workflow ready where they can release stuff on console and PC at similar times, and that means all of these people who have been working on the console port can finally be allocated elsewhere to work on different things. So it could spell a good future for Insurgency Sandstorm with more developers, potentially more money, and potentially even more money for the new developers or more developers to come into the fray. And if that happens to plan out, then hopefully we could be looking at a very successful release on console, a very successful release in general, and something that might pave the way for a better Sandstorm future. I believe they are at PAX East potentially with this build, and if that's the case, I'll be very interested to see what eyes on the ground say about performance and how the game actually plays, because it's something that I guess I just have a lot of questions about. How hard is it to really get this game to run on PS4? Because I truly believe first generation Xbox Ones and PS4s must be an absolute nightmare for a game like this. And we've seen some games in the past try this stuff. Hunt Showdown just released on console and it's capped at 30 FPS and runs like a potato. Verdun released on console and it ran at 30 FPS and looked like potato. And those were the kinds of games that do incredibly well on PC because they run well on PCs that perhaps the next generation might open up towards, but we're really just going to have to wait and see. Anywho folks, that's it from me today, TheTacticalBrit. As always, thank you for watching and feel free to subscribe if you want to see more content.